So I'm just back from that tour of Spain. I thought what I'd do is a quick wash up, just to share with you the things that I've learned over the past 10 days while touring very quickly through Spain. Probably the first thing that I need to explain is that I'm not an experienced bike rider. So I picked up bike riding again later on in my life, probably 2-3 years ago. And I started out with a BMW G650 and then got a Honda CRF 250 Rally, which is just there. And then pretty recently, just back in May, June, got the Africa Twin so that I could do exactly these kind of tours. So what I want to do is just quickly share with you the things that I've learned during my very fast trip through Spain. First thing is that the Africa Twin did exactly what it says on the tin. Performed flawlessly, fast, comfortable. The seat didn't affect me. I was fine on it doing long old journeys, 200 miles plus a day. Had no problems with it whatsoever. On my Africa Twin, it's got the little plate that sits over the fuel tank to stop air coming up through there. That was on there when I got it, and I fitted onto it one of those cheap eBay screen extenders. They're just like an aluminium clip that screws on with a very small 10 centimeter extended perspex screen, and that worked fine. I was absolutely cool with that. If I was looking to add one thing to it that would have helped during this trip, it would have been a good cruise control system. And I've seen the Atlas one, feels a bit clunky to me. I'd prefer something a little bit more electronic. That's the only thing that I would change on the bike. But if I was to do a different tour and do more A roads and national roads, I probably wouldn't need that cruise control. I had a problem with the Honda Panniers. They didn't work as I expected them to, and I don't think I'll be using them again. So these are just the standard silver Honda Panniers. I just spray dipped them because I like the white colour as opposed to the silver colour. I guess that they're made by Givi or somebody like that, Givi. Cut to my experience with them. So these are the standard Honda Panniers. This is just plasti dipped because I didn't like the silver. They're locked at the moment. You can't open them even if you undo these latches. The lock mechanism keeps them closed. Can't pull it off. Turn it to open. Open it up. Get your stuff. Put your stuff in there. Come to close it. Doesn't close. Right, so what do we think's gone on there? Do we think that's this? What do we think? Do we think that it's this? So let me push that to open. No, still doesn't close, okay. But the ferry's going, you know, you need to kind of crack on. The line's moved up. What's gone on here? Why isn't it closing? Why isn't it closing? Perhaps it's not, has the key pushed it back a little bit? And then I'm sticking my fingers in there. No, what it actually is, there. That's why I'm not a fan of the Honda Panniers. So yeah, I would not be using those Honda Panniers again. I'll keep them, I'll put them on the shelf and I'll sell them when I sell the bike. I'll take the plastic dip off them. But what I will do is put on a rack and I'll use soft panniers for the next trip that I do. The top box cost me 40 quid, 50 quid off Amazon. I picked it up a week before I made the trip. I used that more than the panniers because as I was getting more frustrated with the panniers, I started putting more stuff in the top box. In the bottom of the top box, I had my duct taped in my Vera toolkit, which I never needed because it's a Honda. And I would keep a Nalgene bottle of water within there, a few snacks, and an overnight change of clothes and my laptop. So when I would turn up somewhere, I wouldn't need anything really out of the panniers, and I'd just pull my bag and my laptop and refill my Nalgene, and the top box worked really well. I used packing cubes to store my clothes and the stuff that I took with me. If you don't know what a packing cube looks like, they are fabric containers. They're dirt cheap off eBay. These ones are the more expensive ones. I actually liked the clear one so you can see what's inside. I started using these to segregate sports stuff, dirty stuff, bike stuff, and just kind of casual wear. A really good idea is to make sure in your top box you've got one bag that you need when you get on the ferry, because then you can just dump your helmet and your gloves into the top box. You're not going to be needing them on the ferry, and just pull out whatever you need for the 24 hours that you need that you are on the ferry. I booked the first 2 nights hotels from the UK because I wanted to make sure that I had somewhere reserved for when I arrived, and that worked just fine. I looked out effectively. Then I stayed with my pal down in Marbella, and while I was there I booked the next 2 nights going up. So I booked a place in Toledo, which was okay, and the place in Cordoba, which was fantastic. I then got to Guernica, which I'd skip if I'm really honest, and I had kind of a hostel place there which just didn't work for me. So that afternoon I booked an Ibis budget place nearer to the port, which was sterile but fine, and it meant that I only had a short ride going over to the ferry in the morning on the Friday. I kept a Nalgene bottle full of water pretty much all the time. That would sit in the top box. Sometimes I flavoured it. You know, I don't drink a huge amount of water. On the hot days, I was drinking litres and litres of water. I would flavour it. I've got some running tablets, kind of, I've forgotten even what they're called, but they're just effectively flavour tablets, just to take the edge off the water, to make it more palatable. What I found though was that I was stopping at service stations, drinking some water, can of Coke as well, and a snack, and then I would pour a load of water onto a bandana and in my jacket, and then get back on and do another 50 miles. That was on a particularly hot day. I was in a rush to get down to Marbella. My friend lives there, and another friend was arriving there, so I had to scoot down from the top to the bottom of Spain pretty briskly. And so I stuck to the motorways. The motorways were excellently maintained, empty, service stations every 10 or 15 miles, and pretty often I was the slowest one on the road. So lots of cars were overtaking me, and I was doing 80, 85 miles an hour. I would overtake the freight traffic, the trucks that were on, and the drivers were disciplined and good. Better than in the UK, I've got to say. On the way out of Bilbao and then on the way back in, I was routed onto toll roads. The toll roads were indistinguishable from the motorways, if I'm really honest. They gave you a ticket, and I just kept the ticket in the pocket of my rally jacket, and then you could pay with either coins or with a card or with notes. They worked perfectly. I was travelling in the middle of August, and I did a long trip that went from Salamanca down to Seville, and then Seville down to Marbella, and it was dangerously hot. Now, I like hot weather and I can stand a bit of heat, but I would say I was on the edge of dehydrating 2 or 3 times, and I know enough about that to be able to stop and do something about it. You stop, you cool down, you rehydrate. The air temperature on the bike, it either said 43 or 48, doesn't really matter. As soon as it's kind of over mid-30s, that's quite a dangerous place to be. And I was on the bike and the fans were going and the fans were blowing hot air onto me, and you need to be self-aware and do something about that. I was getting a little bit paranoid about security, so I fitted a Minimoto device to the bike. It's secured in the bike, and that alerts you if the bike moves and the keys aren't near it. Just look it up, Minimoto. It's a neat little device that gave me peace of mind. I also carried a chain with an A-bus lock, and I used that twice. I got the feeling that it was pretty secure no matter where it was. Interestingly, in 3 of the places that I stayed, they had private garages, and they said, yeah, just park down there, €8 a night, no problem about it. And in the other places, I just felt it was fine and secure. One of the things I bought just a couple of weeks before I went away was a Sena headset. I've got one on my other helmet. I bought this one, 10H, 5H, I can't remember which one it is. This was a godsend. So not only did it play playlists and my music straight from my iPhone, but I was also using Apple Maps for navigation too. Linked immediately. I was listening more to the navigation through this than I was on the screen, looking at the screen, and that worked really well. I'd get into the room at night and just charge this up, and it was absolutely fine. I don't think this is a particularly well designed one. The cheaper one that I've got on my other helmet has got a button where you can just skip through tracks. To skip through tracks on this, you have to hit the phone thing, engage Siri and say, Siri, next track please. And that was a bit clumsy and clunky. I think the cheaper one's better. For navigation, I didn't use a TomTom, I just used Apple Maps. And it worked fine for me. It got me there every time, clearly. There's a little thing about Apple Maps though. So if you choose a route which is anything other than the fastest one and then stop, it'll just route you back to the fastest route. So often in the morning, not often, in the morning, sometimes I'd select a scenic route, stop and put gas in, get back on the bike thinking I was on the scenic route, only for Apple to route me onto the motorway, and before you know it, I'm on the motorway, and then I can't be arsed turning round and going back. So if you are going to use Apple for navigation, make sure you put some waypoints in. Google might be better, but the way that Apple just picked it up and worked with the headset was good for me. I wore a BMW rally jacket, second hand from Ken. Ken, if you're watching this, thank you. And the trousers that I got from off Gumtree, and the guy that sold them to me is a friend of mine now, so thank you. They were fine. Yeah. Ooh, there's the Nalgene. Yes, it was incredibly hot. So underneath that, I was wearing a very thin mesh lycra running vest on the top, and just regular kind of polyester boxer shorts on the bottoms. Why not cotton? Because cotton doesn't wick. And what I found when it was getting very hot is that even the sweat was just going like that. So I was stopping, wet bandana on, and pouring water all over the inside of this, and then that would evaporate off. I thought it was a good idea. Both waiting for the ferry to go out and then waiting for the ferry to come back into Portsmouth, I met lovely people. Without exception, the other bikers were generous with their time and with their advice, and supportive, and shared knowledge, and were reassuring and just simply lovely. They shared places to go, don't worry about this, everything will be fine, it's all good. They either recognised that I was new to this and a novice, or they were all just kind of lovely people, but all of them, without exception, were just super nice. I hadn't taken my bike on the ferry before. I've been on ferries before with my cars, and I love going on the ferry. It makes it feel like a real adventure. And I was a little bit nervous about taking the bike on the ferry. I had a perception that it might be wet, and those ramps are made of steel and all that. Before you know it, I'm deferring to the worst case scenario. That's my problem. Again, the people there were super helpful. Not only the ferry people, but also the other bikers that were in the queue. And they said, don't worry, what happens now is this, and then what happens now is this, and then what happens now is this. Happy to share that, just ask in the comments. On the ferry, there's a lot of waiting about. So I turned up at Portsmouth, got in the queue to show my ticket. I showed my ticket, and they did a cursory check of my passport, and they gave me my cabin key. And you have a sticker for your bike that goes on your windscreen at your bike. You then go through to the next holding point. There might even be a passport check there, I can't remember. And then that second holding point, that's just before you get onto the ferry, and then they let you onto the ferry. On the ferry, people, they obviously deal with bikes every day, and so watch what they say. They like you to go down the ramps and up the ramps one at a time, just in case you lose it going down the ramps, because if somebody falls going down the ramp, you don't want another person going into it. So give them plenty of space going down. And then when it comes down to securing the bike, leave it to them. Just leave it to them. They do this every day, unless you've got some super high spec bike that you are wildly protective about. Leave it to these guys. They're professionals, and my guess is if they cock it up, then you can claim off their insurance. And so that's what I did. I just left it to them, and hopefully, as I'm saying this, there's some video playing of not only the bikes being locked up, but also then what it looks like at the end. Interestingly, at the end, when we came into Portsmouth, people were a bit brisker in undoing their own bikes and getting ready to go off. I was a bit more relaxed about it. So that's it. I hope that some of that was interesting and informative to you. I'm not the most experienced motorcycle touring person in the world, and I'm not the most experienced motorcyclist in the world. So it's all new to me, and I've learned a lot over the past few days, not only in places to go and not to go, which you can see on the playlist, the Don't Buy the T-shirt playlist, but also in just spending time on the bike, which I really enjoyed. It's been a pleasure and an honour sharing it with you. Like and subscribe. I'm going to do more of this stuff and go more places. So if you think that there's anywhere particularly I should go and see, let me know. Everybody raved about the Algarve, central Portugal. I've never been to Portugal, but it's somewhere that I want to go. Another couple that I met on the ferry, they said, you've got to go to the Pyrenees. I'd love to go to the Pyrenees. That works for me. I can imagine doing a night in Barcelona and, you know, kind of going along. Yeah, I can think of places to do there. I want to go to Switzerland, to Ilgraben. That's on my list of places to go. Basically, as long as it's dry and warm, I'm happy to go there. So with that, stay safe on your travels, and I hope that you tune in at some point in the future. Take care. Bye.